This is a presentation of the School of Criminal Justice and Law Enforcement at California Southern University.
My name is Mario Casas. I retired from the Irvine Police Department after 25 years, 2 years ago. Prior to that, I had 6 years working for a specialized agency in Los Angeles at the RTD Police Department. It was called back in the day. So I had 31 years total before I retired. I currently run a training company called Universal Training Concepts and contract with 3SI Security Systems, which some of you may be familiar with because we provide the trackers for baiting property in your agencies.
I'm Jenny Lindsay. I'm the Mental Health Liaison Officer for the City of Irvine. I've been an officer with Irvine for 9 years and wear a variety of hats for our department. I've been on crisis negotiations, peer support, TLO, and I also have prior experience as an emergency dispatcher, and I started my career as an explorer, so talk about succession planning.
I'm Deputy Laurel Yoshimoto with Orange County Sheriff's Department. I have 3.5 years on, and I love it.
I'm Corporal Oscar Lizardi with the Santa Ana Police Department. I have a little bit over 18 years on the job. Lateral to the Santa Ana Police Department, 98, started with the Riverside Police Department.
I'm Benny Green. I'm Corporal for UC Irvine Police Department. I've been here approximately 11 years. Wear multiple hats. Currently I'm FTO training also. I do the diversity training for our department, SRT member, and a myriad of other things. So I'm glad to be here.
First question, how does racial profiling or bias-based policing impact law enforcement, and how do you deal with community concerns in this issue? Or I guess in the past tense, Mario, how did you deal?
You know, I'm in a very unique situation right now because I don't have a boss in the audience. I'm actually been retired from Irvine for 2 years now, and I know as management squirms in their seats right now, I go, oh my God, what's Mario going to say? I will keep it very to point because there's been a lot of good comments made on this issue. And quite frankly, the unfortunate reality of the situation is the perceptions that some of our communities have of police officers. And a lot of that has been exacerbated by the media coverage. Unfortunately, they like to promote the negativity of police work and not enough of the positive work that police work does. And that's just the unfortunate reality of the situation. So, and we're not very good at blowing our own whistles. We're really not. I'm currently chairing the advisory committee for the Post Peace Officer Standards and Training Committee, and I work closely with the commission. And one of our goals at Post is to try to find a way for us to blow our own whistle and show the general public nationwide, and more importantly in California, that we're doing the job that's expected as far as interacting with the community in a positive way. Racial profiling, I'd like to say, I like to believe is a small percentage of people who do this. I think the vast majority of officers do a phenomenal job, and we need to promote that more and find a way to promote that more, both in the media and within our own, within the police departments. Now being a community member myself in Lake Forest, I see that. The sheriff's department does a phenomenal job in servicing the community of Lake Forest, and as they do in any other community. It's just not publicized enough. And unfortunately, the negativity has put this perception on law enforcement that I don't believe is really true. So we do have to find a way to make it better.
Well, thanks for that setup there, Mario. So diversity training and cultural change to me were kind of a no-brainer, I guess, for lack of a better term. I think Irvine is very unique in that we are very culturally diverse. So this is the first agency I was sworn in, but I worked as an emergency dispatcher in St. Gabriel. So I'm familiar with the two different dichotomies. One where you have a community that is very largely based on one ethnic background versus one that is very culturally diverse. And we have a numerous amount of opportunities to make and bridge those gaps. And luckily, Irvine does support community-based policing, and they really put their money where their mouth is, for lack of a better term. I'm unique in that I pretty much am a social worker with a badge and a gun. I'm a mental health liaison officer, and so I really go out and try and bring resources to people that are in need and provide supportive services to family, which oftentimes I feel like I'm selling used vacuum cleaners. So it can be challenging to bridge some of those gaps in the beginning because there is a lot of sensitivity, and a lot of that is fed by media, but I think there are a lot of things already strategically in place, long-standing from our department certainly, that help bridge those gaps. And it is having those conversations and getting out and meeting your community on a different level, not necessarily just for that call for service. But I caution law enforcement agencies when you look at that, because that Nordstrom level of service, while I embrace it wholeheartedly, I think it's what we should be doing, it's time consuming. And you have to look at how you're gauging your productivity of your officers much differently, because you can't necessarily rely on statistics of what that officer's been doing in terms of reports or tickets, or because you're looking at a different realm. So your community-based policing officers that are really focusing on making those relationships, it's much harder to gauge their level of productivity. So those are probably things we want to look at as organizations, and how do we still help hold those officers up where that is their strong point, because it definitely is something that can be easily overlooked, and that's what we really want to publicize and get the information out of there, because those relationships are invaluable.
One of the things I love about my job is that we have a lot of culture in Orange County. We are a big, diverse community. For example, I'm a white woman with a Japanese last name and I speak Spanish. And I'm pretty normal, you know, in our communities. How many people do we have that come from these rich diversities? And we are a young department. And part of what my generation has grown up with is the joy of learning about our neighbors. And the reason I speak Spanish isn't because I grew up in a family that spoke Spanish. It's because I worked with people who spoke it, and they were really cool, and I wanted to learn about them. I wanted to be like them. And so part of, as a young department, as new people on this job, as a new generation coming through, you know, I look to my 960s, I look to my partners, hey, and so when I'm dealing with someone who's a different race, it's not the race I'm looking at, because we don't racially profile. We are not allowed to. Man, that's a bad day, and that's the end of your job right there if you do that in my department. But there are language barriers, there are cultural differences, there are things I don't understand, and so there's times I call my lesbian partner, hey, I don't understand this reference she just made, what was she talking about, so next time I can do a better job. Hey, I don't speak Farsi, but I know this guy does. Hey, I'm not from Egypt, I don't understand what this guy's, where he's coming from, but I can ask my partner over here who's Egyptian, and he'll help me out. It's our vast richness as a department, and the people that we have in our diversity in our department, that helps us not racially profile. And yes, we all do have biases. I happen to think that Japanese men are very handsome. I'm biased, you know? But so I married one. But, so we definitely, all of us do have biases, but they're not necessarily bad biases. And then if they are bad, if there is a cultural something, man, my partner, if she or he sees me doing something I shouldn't, they're just smack me up the head so hard and say, hey, Yosh, you don't do that, you know? Really? Is that what you think about Asians? Well, I'm Asian, and I'm like, oh, no, you're right, you're not like that. And so on my level, we keep each other accountable pretty closely. If there is anything we don't understand, or say, hey, you know, in that culture, like, the reason they don't want to make eye contact with you is because it's rude. Oh, I didn't know that. And I'm like, why didn't you look into my eyes? Oh, they were trying to be polite. Oh, I'm sorry. And then we go from there and we learn. And so the issue of racial profiling in where I work right now, it's not an issue, it's more how can we learn to deal with the different cultures? What do I not know that I can go on and learn so that I can serve better, and so I can answer that call better, so I can understand what's happening in this situation. Because the culture and the language and where our people come from do inform the situations we encounter as we go and serve.
Okay, with the topic, obviously, racial profiling, I want to just note the fact that Commander LeBron, I listened to you speak, and I was very much in line with what you had to say. Having worked the assignment for over 18 years, worked a variety of assignments, but the majority being on the street level, been on SWAT for almost 15 years, and done a lot of suppression, proactive type work. I've worked hand in hand with many of the officers there at the front line, dealing with first response incidents, but also with the community hand in hand. I will tell you that for the most part, it comes down to the generations. I've heard you, Tommy, mention your incident from, but back in the day, and I do agree that it is a generational thing. We're in the millennial generation. I happen to come from Generation X, if you will. So therefore, you see that, and I do agree, this is already something that started from early on. I personally can tell you in over 18 years, I've never experienced anything like that, or any of my partners or any of my colleagues whom I've worked with. And like I said, I've worked a very aggressive unit. I will tell you, it is a difficult topic to talk about because of the fact that it's more of a perception. And I do agree with Lieutenant Park when he mentions that getting the communities involved, and kind of touches into the community policing. But the more the community is educated, the more that they're aware of what we do, and invite them, not just on the patrol level, because we could only do so much, but from our supervisors, from our management, from our executives, to really reinforce that, because all we hear is the negatives, but really invite them to bring out and let the community see what it is that we do, and let them watch us perform, not just the aftermath. Because the reality is that we are out there doing a very good job. Unfortunately, it's the perception.
Yeah, I think here at UC Irvine, it's a little bit, we have a unique perspective or a unique environment due to all the differences in types of races and religions, all types of people that we have on campus that we deal with. So I think as a department, we do an excellent job in the sense of what we do is when we get academy graduates and we have laterals, we put them through a training program prior to even hitting the actually FTO program. It's about a 2-week deal. And it's going to cover everything from, diversity, which is what I do, that's my role in it, to firearms, to I'm sure what others do as well. It could be how to deal with different assaults, things of that nature. But one of the things, like I said, I do is the diversity part of it. And what we do is we try to let the people, the new recruits, I said, and new academy graduates and the actual laterals know that this environment is different. You're going to have different religious factions, you're going to have different gender issues, all kinds of things, everything. This is a small city. So whatever you're going to have out in municipalities, you're going to have here. And so also you're dealing with young minds, a lot of times, and impressionable minds. And I think that's part of our job, to go out there and to try to put our best foot forward. So what we do is try to teach them to do the same thing and keep that, I think what I'd like to say, a newfound tradition of going in that right direction. Secondly, what we do is also we reach out into what we have here, many of you may not know, it's called a cross-cultural center. And what that is we're a group of, a lot of these groups, these different organizations, they gather, and that's like, if you will, for lack of a better term, a safe haven for them where they can express themselves. What we do is we try to go over there, and that's something I deal with as well, and try to get actually I'm the liaison for our department, but we try to get a dialogue, and we develop a relationship with them that has not been the best in the past. And when we go over there, we sit down in panels, we do things like this. And I think by doing these things, that's what's going to help to achieve and create a better atmosphere for all of us involved on this campus.
This has been a presentation of the School of Criminal Justice and Law Enforcement at California Southern University.